If you've been following along for a while, you've probably heard me talk about or write about my all over the place food media career. Food styling, TV, recipe writing, and the genesis, which involved a lot of Chinatown buses and auditioning for cooking competition shows in the 2010s. It would be exciting enough to chat with anyone else who shared that experience. But to find someone locally who works here in Boston who also has ADHD, I think today's guest, Ashley Moore, who is a food stylist and senior editor at America's Test Kitchen, I think she just might be my spirit animal. Today, we talk candidly about the costs and benefits of having a brain like ours in the kitchen, in putting away our laundry, and of course in the workplace. We also revisit our early careers and share take-home tips that we've learned from food styling and working on sets that you can use in cooking and entertaining at home. Plus, there's an honest look at how we feed our kids dinner, which, you guys, it's no easy feat. I don't care if you're a professional or a huge fan of takeout. It is not easy, so we go there too. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Let's talk with Ashley.
This could happen to you. This could happen to you. This could happen to you.
I wanted to take a moment to tell you about the Not From Concentrate newsletter on Substack. Subscribe for free to stay up to date on new episodes and get access to giveaways and bonus content. I also want to give a special shout out to my paid subscribers who get new, wildly delicious and distraction-proof recipes delivered to their inboxes every month, as well as essays and tips for cooking with a busy brain. Plus, paid subscribers get access to my full recipe archive. Head to catherinesmart.com to become a free or paid subscriber, and thank you for supporting the show.
Ashley Moore, welcome to Not From Concentrate.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. We have had similar career paths in some ways. You do all of the things from food styling to cooking on TV to teaching classes. So many people will recognize you from Cook's Country and America's Test Kitchen. But for anybody who is not familiar with your work, could you just give a little bit of a background of what you're doing every day?
Yeah, absolutely. Every day is a little bit different. And that's why I think I love what I do, because I've been at America's Test Kitchen now for almost 15 years, which is pretty wild. And my day-to-day now looks very different than it did 15 years ago, as you could imagine. So now I am one of the resident food stylists. There are two of us now. And yeah, we work on different photo shoots every single day or video shoots. That's sort of like the 9 to 5 for the rest of the year when we're not filming. And we will be working on anything from digital, all the recipes that are going to be going up on our app, the America's Test Kitchen app. So any of those images that you scroll and see, that's what we shoot every day. We also have a lot of different books that are always in the works. So we could be working on a high protein book and then the next day be working on a cocktail book. So there's always different books being made, but it's just a matter of what we're shooting that definitely changes from day to day. And then, yeah, we get to do fun stuff like the online cooking school, which is also called Classes now. That's a really great way to learn anything from Knife Skills 101 to breaking down or deboning a leg of lamb. Like, it really runs the gamut for learning how to cook or just continuing your love of cooking. And then we shut down for about 2 to 3 weeks twice a year, and we shoot both America's Test Kitchen and then we shoot Cook's Country.
That's amazing. And, you know, it's been so cool to watch ATK grow and expand, and you're on like so many different platforms now. Can you give us kind of a refresh of like all the different, you named some of them, but like all the different buckets where we find that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So now actually the most exciting thing that just happened I think a few weeks ago was that we're now on Netflix, which is so exciting. Yeah, thanks. So we have a few new vodcasts, so video podcasts that are launching there, one of which has already launched called The Side Dish with two of my sheroes, Bridget and Julia, and they sort of break down the fun extra stuff about filming over the years. They've worked together forever and they are the best of friends, and they sort of talk about the funny things that have happened. You sort of get to know them in a different way because, so much gets edited out of the show. So you really get to see just how hilarious and brilliant the two of them are, especially together. And so that's really exciting. But yeah, there's going to be a few of those on Netflix and then a few other series that are going to be rolling out there as well. So it's a really exciting time for us. We also have a program called The Residency. So we're actually working with, I think we have 9 folks right now that have had this following, social media following, and they've been working with different newspapers and a few of them have cookbooks out. So that's been really cool. We've been working with them and that's been a really great opportunity to sort of get us in front of a different audience than, let's say, the PBS audience, because so much is digital first now. So that's been a really, really interesting thing to watch the company do, is obviously navigate this time of social media and YouTube and all these different platforms. But it's been really cool to see us grow and sort of adapt and sort of metamorphosize, is that a word, into these different channels and buckets, as you will. But yeah, we're on Pluto. We are on Zoomy, I think. If you go on the website, americastestkitchen.com, it breaks down all the different platforms. But Netflix is definitely the one that we're super, super pumped about.
That's awesome. And I saw the residences that you have, and I just thought it was such a smart business decision, as somebody who's been in food media for a long time, because public media is so fantastic, but it is so hard sometimes to connect with new audiences or younger audiences. And I just thought that was just such a smart way to connect with new audiences. And
yeah, I agree. Again, it's been really interesting and fun to watch the company just adapt. And yeah, I've met some amazing folks from this residency program, and it's just been such a cool way for us to also cook different types of food and new ways of baking and different ways of, I don't know, it just sort of gives you fresh perspective, which I think is always very, very important.
yeah. So going back to kind of your personal life, Ashley, you have 2 boys, is that right? First grade and 6th or something? What is?
Close. You're good. 3rd grade is Jackson. He's 8. And Willie is in 1st grade. So yeah, you were super, super close. And they're awesome. They're great.
Well, I have 2 boys also. And so often people are asking about well, what do you cook at home? And so I wanted to ask you, what does dinner look like at your house? And I also want to hear about the take-home fridge and if that's a part of dinner strategy.
Yes. These guys will eat anything from, and it's not because I'm making it, they will eat anything from shrimp scampi to prime rib to sliced leftover chicken breasts, because that's what's in the fridge. And yeah, so I'm going to combine the two. The take-home fridge is honestly one of the biggest perks of working at ATK, because you can, or just being at the right place at the right time when one of the test cooks is wrapping up, let's say a prime rib tasting, and you're like, hey, can I get some of that? Before it hits the take-home fridge. So that's awesome. But every night, honestly, and I don't know if it's because of COVID, but holy cow, cooking during the week is not something I do every single night. My husband chips in. Sunday is my day to cook. I love to cook on a Sunday. I love to take my time, start at 3, and then just cross my fingers and hope that what I've been cooking for 3 hours, they actually want to eat. Because that doesn't always happen. Shocking. So yeah, but we also have this new program called Dinner Tonight. It's a book, actually. It's all about weeknight-based cooking. And it's around 12 ingredients or less, and usually 3 or 4 steps or less. And everything's supposed to be on the table from the second you start chopping to the, second you pull something off the stove in about 45 minutes. So that's been a really cool thing to work on as well. Just because, the weeknight home stretch is getting food on the table
so
is
hard. I remember being younger before I had children. I remember hearing that Giada De Laurentiis had a personal chef. And I remember thinking that's so crazy. Why would she do that? And then I became a personal chef. And then as soon as I had kids, I was like, I need a personal chef. And I don't have one, but I completely understand that if you at all have the means to do that, even if you love to cook,
Totally. And like, I don't know about you, but I leave really early in the morning and I get home at 6 and, and I know everybody's hungry and like, so anyways, we have our go-tos and stuff, but I definitely try to extend what I made on Sunday a couple times throughout the week. And again, fingers crossed that everybody will actually eat it. But we do like, we'll do takeout like once a week or whatever, but I never thought I wanted a microwave in my kitchen until I had kids. And now I'm like, all hail the microwave. That's how I cook broccoli. It's like one of my favorite ways to cook broccoli. It's an old Cook's Country recipe.
We don't have room for a microwave, which I hate. And like, I need to figure out a way to make room for it. But I'm that way with the air fryer. Like I use my air fryer to reheat stuff all the time. I'm like this ugly, weird appliance I never would have thought, but it's so great.
It's like a Jetsons. It's like a thing from the Jetsons show, the air fryer. But like you can reheat pizza in an air fryer and it's like almost as good as when you brought it home, Or like also all hail the toaster oven. Like I love a big toaster oven now. Who knew these are going to be my things that I like was slightly obsessed with someday.
What are some of your favorite, like what are some of your go-to sort of family meals that you feel like you can reliably make and folks will eat?
So we have this weeknight roast chicken recipe, and I know it sounds so basic to say I love doing a roast chicken, but I do. And what's really cool about this recipe is that you turn off the oven and the residual heat from the oven continues to cook the chicken. And my favorite thing about this recipe is the story of how it came to be. There was a power outage at ATK back when we were in our old offices, and the team developing, I think it was for Cooks Illustrated way back when, they were in a tasting, and the person, I think it was Brian Roof, whose recipe it is, he left the chicken in the oven. And even though it had only been in the oven for, let's say, 30 minutes, he left it in the oven. And actually the power had gone out. So the power went off in the oven. Turns out after another, I think it was like 35 or 40 minutes, it came up to temperature and it ended up being the most delicious chicken. And so they sort of went with it. And then they just made this recipe out of that moment that happened to make it work. And it's so delicious. And like the skin gets beautiful and golden brown and the meat is so juicy and it's everything you want in a roast chicken. But I don't know. And it's super hands off, which I love too.
But that's amazing because like I think about soccer practice, right? And maybe I have time to start something, but I can't leave my oven on and go. So like that's the perfect solution.
Right.
And then come back from soccer practice and you have like a cooked chicken in your oven.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know. It's such a cool recipe. And I love to throw in some, like sliced potatoes underneath there, like 1/2-inch thick sliced Yukon Golds, because it will get nice and schmaltzy. Or another thing I love to do, especially with roast chicken, is do something like the Zuni Cafe chicken. So you have like torn pieces of bread and they get all schmaltzy and delicious. And then like while your chicken is resting, you pop those back in the oven and let them just get nice and brown and toasty. And then you toss that with some like arugula and a really nice dressing. Like that's anyway, I feel like I got off topic, but
that's making me really hungry. Wait, so give me one. We have the roast chicken. Everyone's going to look up that recipe now, but what's like one other go-to weeknight recipe?
I love like a 1-pot Dutch oven. We've got a sausage, kale, and white bean soup that's really good. Lydie Hudek, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Lydie. She just did this really great, sort of like a pasta fazool, but it's with shells and pancetta and carrots and tomatoes. And it's a 1-pot meal. And sometimes, you know how when you do like a 1-pot pasta, the sauce gets extra starchy and the pasta's never really that good? I don't know if you've...
Yes. It gets kind of gluey sometimes.
Yeah, gluey and gummy and like not as good as I want it to be. This, for some reason, is like the answer to my prayers of like a 1-pot pasta that really cooks, the pasta cooks in the sauce and everything. And then you bake it in the oven and it's covered in a ton of cheese and it's so good. That's another one that my family loves too. So those are like my 2 go-tos.
That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, cozy.
So Ashley, you told me right from the jump that you also have ADHD. And we've had some folks on the show who have ADHD. Sometimes it's just, wonderful cooks and authors that have experience to share that can be helpful for ADHD brains. But you're one of the first cooks to just come out and say you have ADHD ahead of us even talking. And I am so excited to hear, how has that experience shaped your life in the kitchen? And like, how do you think that it plays into your job and, what you do every day?
I think I found what to do if you have a brain like mine. And what I mean by that is like this job I do, like I mentioned, is like every day is not the same. And that's good because my brain doesn't want every day to be the same. I love the fact that Monday is not going to be the same as Thursday. I also love the fact that I work with different photographers every day. I work with different art directors every day, different props. Like my job is very tactile. I'm using my hands a lot. And, you know, we try to put our computers away during photo shoots. And it's just, the people there on set are the people that matter and that are making the decisions. And it's a lot of on the fly decisions, which again is good for my brain, because if I had too long to think about it, I would second guess it. And then I'd like, I don't know, you know what I'm maybe hopefully trying to say. And then also like I noticed even last week, there was a moment where, you know, for food styling, especially, all the horses need to be running at the same pace in order to make a shoot really successful, right? And there was something last week that happened that for whatever reason it was a photo of pasta. It was a really beige photo. So it was chicken. It was sort of like this light tan sauce and penne pasta. And in order to make this work, all these things had to just happen at the same time. So at one point, someone looked over and she's like, wow, look at you go. And I would never toot my own horn. But at that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is like my superpower ADHD, just like doing its thing all at the same time.
Getting into flow state.
Yeah, for sure. In my hand, I had like a bowl of fresh cracked pepper that was like the right kind of size cracked pepper I needed it to be. I also had another bowl of parm, and then I had a few extra slices of chicken, and then I had this other like thing of sauce and my paintbrush. And I just was like, in the moment, I would never have been able to explain, okay, go ahead to somebody else, go grab this, and this, and like make it happen all at once. But because my brain is wired the way it is, it was like the train was out of the station and it was just going. So I feel like that's when my ADHD can become the superpower that people describe it to be, as opposed to other times when it's not a superpower and it feels like I'm either in the paralysis of analysis or I'm overwhelmed because I sort of like can't put pen to paper. But anyway, so suffice it to say, what I do is so hands-on and collaborative that's why I think I'm able to continue to do what I do and hopefully continue to grow and do good work and create beautiful images and videos and stuff like that. I think it was hard to sort of figure out the perfect cocktail of what to do and how to do it. And, you know, and I'm on ADHD meds, which definitely help because a photo shoot day without my ADHD meds versus one with my ADHD meds look very different. And I apologize to everybody in the beginning. I'm like, guys, I forgot to take my meds this morning. I'm going to apologize in advance because I'll end up being in like the hallway for 30 minutes talking and like, you know, anyway. So it just helps keep me on the straight and narrow.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I was diagnosed in third grade, but I really sort of tucked it aside and didn't think about it for most of my adult life. Obviously, what I'm doing now, I'm exploring it a lot more and thinking about how it affects me and other people and how I can be helpful. But I didn't know about these terms like body doubling, which is, you know, when people with ADHD feel like they can do work much better when they have somebody else doing work around them, even if they're not doing the actual work. Have you heard of this?
No.
Yeah. So it makes sense why like a photo shoot is perfect because you're tapping into your creativity, which is like getting the dopamine flowing. And there's all these smart creative people doing their own smart creative jobs. Whereas I feel like, I don't know if you felt this way or how you worked in COVID, but one of the reasons I think I never became an influencer or like a content creator, I should say, on my own is it's very hard for me to like turn on a camera alone in my house and do the thing. Whereas, you know, on a TV set or a photo shoot set, you have all that energy and all those people. So yeah, I was curious if you'd heard of body doubling or like you ever thought about that as a thing.
No, and I'm totally gonna like deep dive into that because that makes so much sense. And I also think it makes sense as to why, like, no offense to people at desk jobs, like more power to you. Like for me, I have a really hard time doing desk work unless I'm like no distractions around me. I always have to have my music on in my in my headphones, and I'm like a list girl. So if I like, need to make sure I get 10 things done today, if I don't write it out, I feel like I can't stay on task. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. I'm also curious, were you diagnosed as an adult or earlier in life?
So what's weird, not weird, but so technically I was 21, but I started getting tested for LD and ADHD at age 4. And so they would repeat the testing every few years. And it wasn't until I was in high school, because I went to like a smaller private school that was more arts-based. So I went to a private school, and again, they would test me every few years because they'd be like, something seems off. But it wasn't until I was in my sophomore year of high school that they found that I had a language-based learning disability. So I actually went up to Landmark, which is up in Beverly, Massachusetts, and I went there for 2 years. And I sort of had to rewire my brain and learn how to learn all over again, because I was always in theater. I was always playing sports. Like I was always doing things that I would, make progress with, but it wasn't on paper academically, because that wasn't where my strengths were. But I ended up going to college. I got my BFA in acting. And so, which is interesting too, because like I had to audition in order to get into any of my colleges. It wasn't, thank God they didn't rely on my SAT scores, because that was just, I still to this day haven't even told my husband what I got on my SATs. But so it's just interesting how your brain sort of decides it wants to work, and hopefully you find a way to make it all sort of fall into place.
Yeah. And I think it's so inspiring. Like from the outside looking in, I think of food styling. Yes, it's creative, but like you have to be very organized and really have your stuff together. And then I also think about ATK. I've always been such a fan and always so intimidated because it's so precise. It's like the testing is so precise and the documentation is so precise. And so I'm curious, like, what is it like as a creative ADHD person to work and clearly thrive in a place like ATK?
Thanks. I appreciate that. I think when I am in the kitchen, even like today, I'm prepping for a shoot for tomorrow. I think I am like overly organized, even though that's not my MO. Like if you were to see my closet, you'd be like, ugh. But like if you saw my workstation, you'd be like, okay. Like it's like it's different me. I don't know. It's very interesting. Like the other day, even someone was like, oh my gosh, like look at your station. I was like, I just get hyper focused, I guess. And then you can like check out. But yeah, because everything has to be so precise, especially doing recipe development. Like you can't forget that you added an extra quarter cup of extra virgin olive oil. Like if you do, that's a problem. You know what I mean? Or you can't forget that you need to add sugar to a baking recipe or something like that. Like you have to really be dialed in, especially if you're doing what we call side-by-sides or like a 5 recipe test. Like all that food needs to be out at the same time in its best state so that everybody can taste it, so that the kitchen can sort of figure out which direction a recipe is going to go, for instance.
Staying with ATK for a second, and then I want to get into some of your skill set for a minute. So you've said it, for 15 years. You've been at ATK, right? 14 or 15 years.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And you've obviously seen a lot of changes and a lot of growth. And I think whatever industry people are in right now, like the world is shifting beneath our feet. And I'm curious, what advice do you have for folks to kind of ride that wave and see something through and sort of stick with it if they're in a career or an organization or a group? How do they kind of ride that wave of change and continue to succeed there?
Yeah, I think honestly, as long as you're doing something, this may sound cliche, but as long as you're doing something that you really can't imagine yourself doing something else, like if, let's say you want to be a painter and you're able to get paid to paint every single day, even though you're not at the level someday you will be, but your heart is so obsessed with painting that you have to be doing it every day. Like you do what you want to do because you have to do it, because you can't imagine yourself doing anything else. And I feel as though that if you keep doing that. You ride that wave of showing up every single day, opening yourself up to change, opening yourself up to outcome, knowing things are going to shift, maybe not in the way you want it to be. But as long as you're painting that paint every single day, at some point you're going to turn back and be like, holy cow, I've come really far. And I always see those things on those, like the memes or whatever that say like, right now you're on your way to a job that of course I'm going to butcher the bejesus out of it, but like today you're on your way to do something that you dreamt of doing 20 years ago. And I always say perspective is so important because it is. And like, we get so stuck in the day to day of things and like, oh, this isn't going well, or like, why didn't this happen? But like, if you just stop for 2 seconds and fly above you for a minute and just realize, holy cow, I do have everything I always wanted. And oh my gosh, am I lucky? And like, yeah, do I wish I had a couple more zeros in my checking account? Like in the good way? Yeah. But like all in all, like people are healthy. You're doing what you love to do. I just think like, as I said, be open to outcome. If it's something you have to do, then you must do it. You know, like I didn't take no for an answer when I knew I wanted to get to Food Network to do my internship after culinary school. And I got there. I got to Food Network and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I also think it's really important to treat people nicely and treat people well and be kind and work your butt off.
Be kind and work your butt off. That's the key.
I have that print in my bathroom at home, and it's like, be kind and work really hard because like you never know. I don't know. I just think if you treat people well, you do the work, you essentially are digging in your heels, and then I think good things will come. At least I hope.
I did have a question for you about your time at Food Network and about spilling the tea on what it's like to work for Emeril and Bobby Flay. So tell us a little bit about that kind of jumpstart to your career in food.
Yeah. So after CalArts, I got my BFA at CalArts, but I wasn't in the position to stay out in LA. So I moved back to Connecticut, went to Johnson & Wales, got my culinary degree, because at CalArts, I was sort of like grappling with this thing of, I know I want to be on camera, but I also want to be cooking. And this is when Rachel Ray was just coming out and Emeril was a household name. Bobby Flay was definitely out as a name. And so, yeah, so eventually it's so funny to like sort of sum it all up in like a little paragraph when at the time it was like the biggest deal. But I did get the internship there at Food Network, and Emeril was just, there was something about him that I just could have sat and watched him paint a wall white for a month. And there is something about him that is so charming and charismatic, and he wouldn't even take direction from the director unless we all were on set together. And I was just like this little intern, like he didn't have to include me in that, but he did. And that I will never forget. And yeah, so I have such a soft spot in my heart for him. I think the world of him, and I'm so happy for all of his success that he's continued to have in his family. And I remember I would watch his 2 kids while they were filming the last season, and I would just, because I love kids, and so I would hang out with EJ and Meryl, and they were like 2 and 4 or something. And I'd like walk them all around the floor at Chelsea Market at Food Network. And it was really cool. It was a really cool time to be there. Someone made family meal every day. Everybody sat down and ate lunch together at this huge table. And the shows were about teaching people how to cook. And Iron Chef was there. That was one of the shows. But other than that, it was really all about teaching people how to cook. So yeah, and Bobby Flay was great. And I remember I did a throwdown with Bobby Flay. It was the meatball episode, and we were shooting out in Long Island. And I remember it was like August or July or something. And of course I like didn't bring sunscreen because I thought I was like someday going to start to tan, which I still am like convinced I'm like, I'll tan. It's no big deal. Anyway, so I got out of the van and he got out of the car and someone introduced us. And the first thing he said was, "Did you bring sunblock?" And I said, I was like, "No, I don't think I have sunblock." And he said, "I just got back from Greece. I was there for 3 weeks." He's like, do you think I use sunblock? And I was like, yeah. He's like, so he had his assistant, go out and get me sunblock, which was, again, so kind.
You guys have like the same complexion, like you and
Oh my
Bobby
gosh.
Flay, which I
Totally.
hadn't really thought about until this moment.
Totally.
Yes.
And like same eyes and same color hair. And it was so funny. Like looking at him in real life, I was like, no, it doesn't look like you've been in Greece for 3 weeks. You did a really good job with sunblock.
You must know you're going to be on TV for a long time with that moneymaker.
I know. Yeah. But yeah, they were great.
And so that is so cool because I decided I wanted to be in food watching those shows. I mean, I would run home from school and watch Rachel and Mario Batali because it was a different time. And
I know.
All of that block was like my church. I mean, I watched it every day. I auditioned for Food Network Star 10 times, Ashley, and I was a runner-up every single year. They were like, your POV is not strong enough.
Oh my God. You probably needed to be like crazy.
Yeah, I should have. I mean, I didn't understand. I didn't understand the TV aspect of it back then. But I remember rewatching the tapes. I remember buying then a little later, I remember buying all of the Food Network Star tapes with like Bob Tushman and Susie Fulgerson and just like studying them. And that's when I was on Milk Street, like I studied those tapes for my audition, and like everything that Rachel would say, I would like write down. I'd be like, I need to do this. It was such a cool time.
I know. I was for sure like, I had like a horse with blinders on. I just was like, just sort of like you just said, anything it did to sort of get me there. Like I was in the depths of Google that I don't think I've ever been back to again, just trying to find email addresses of, someone who once had a cousin who walked by Chelsea Market that may have waved to someone that works there. Like it was so kooky now that I think back on it, but like whatever, I had to do it.
I'm glad I'm not alone. I could dig up, I have the most embarrassing emails that I sent to John Rosen, who was Rachel's agent, because I remember reading about it.
Yeah, of course.
Like in the New York Times. And some kind assistant did write back, like, reach back out to us when your platform has ripened. Like, I'm like looking back at it, I'm like, this is so embarrassing. But it also was a different time because it wasn't like, oh, go build a TikTok channel. It was like people did get discovered. Like that was sort of, you had to like get in that way.
Yeah. And you're like, how do I ripen my platform?
Yeah. I'm like, what does that even mean?
You're like, ripen my platform. But yeah, I know, you're right. Like it wasn't social media then. It wasn't like anything other than you just need to like be on camera more. But like, how do you be on camera if you're in the middle of the US? And it just was it was like those shows that got people in front of people. Oh man. So you were a finalist every
single year. It was wild. But anyways, it worked out eventually. And I'm glad that when I did finally get to be on food TV, like it was on Milk Street and not as a reality contestant. Like looking back, I'm like, actually, like that's probably great that that's how that worked out.
I'm right there with you because Hell's Kitchen, no offense to Hell's Kitchen, I was a finalist to be on the cast of that show. And I am, no offense, I'm very grateful it didn't happen, but also the way that when I was flying out to LA for that like last round of auditions, first of all, the person at security check threw out like all my hair products and makeup. This was pre all the things. So I was like, great. Now I'm going to have like really bad hair and no makeup. And then also on the flight from New York to LA, the gentleman to my left went into anaphylactic shock because there were peanuts on the plane and they didn't speak English. And then the guy to my right was still drunk from the night before. So he was sound asleep and I couldn't wake him up while the guy to my left was like having anaphylactic shock. It was so stressful. I know. I should have known just from the flight experience over. And then you just have to like sit in a hotel room by yourself. And I don't even know if I had a cell phone back then. I don't even know. Maybe I did. No computer. I just was like sitting in a hotel room.
Yeah, it was a very different time. I think it worked out. I took so many like Chinatown buses to like a random hotel, and then you'd have to like make food in your hotel room and like put it in a cooler and like wait in line. It was just crazy. But
I know.
You know what?
I know.
We got through it, and we're here now instead. Oh, and the last thing I will say on that is like how full circle that not only are you on ATK, but now that's going to Netflix. And maybe I'm delusional, but I'm like, oh, look, instructional cooking television is going like mainstream again? Like, are we coming back around?
Maybe you're right. I hope I'm lucky enough to ride that wave, you know?
Very cool. And better prepared now as a seasoned
I hope
professional
so.
and a mother and like,
Ugh.
okay, so now I have two more things for you. So one, I want to talk about just your craft a little bit and food styling. And I think people are really curious. And so I want to hear also, I think what I want to hear is like some tricks that people can use at home. So like, what do you do as a food stylist that you think is useful insider information for someone throwing a dinner party or wanting to make their food look beautiful?
I know that this is, again, very cliche, but people eat with their eyes first. So I get a little obsessive, not obsessive, but I do find myself like touching a lot of food, even if I, like, for instance, Super Bowl, my friend on Sunday was like, can you help me do these lettuce wraps? And I found myself touching every single piece of lettuce. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm like, that's because I'm in the habit of doing that. But I hope no one's like looking at me like kookily, like arranging the iceberg lettuce all over this platter so people can eat it. Anyway, so I do think that presentation matters. And I find myself, even with my boys, like if it looks good, I wonder if they eat it more so than if I just were to sort of throw it down. A jury's out on that one. I don't really know if that's true or not. But yeah, so I would say definitely like people eat with their eyes first. I love a platter moment. You know, I think that family style is such a great way to eat at the table. And I love a tablescape. I hate that word, but I love a tablescape. And again, it goes back to like people eating with their eyes first. Like, you know, it's everything down to the candles, to the flatware, to the plates that you choose, to the glassware, or maybe plastic cups for the kids for their milk. But I think if the table is set nicely and the music is good and it's just you want to be in that moment or environment or experience, more so than if the lights were full blast, music wasn't on, I can't help not just go all out when it comes to like setting the table or like, you know.
But like, so if someone is feeling totally overwhelmed, what are the basics of a good tablescape? The overhead lights are for sure. Turn those down and light a couple candles. What else are we putting on this table to make it look nice?
We're gonna do like I said, a platter. Like if you can buy yourself 2 platters to keep in your house. I love a big oval platter. You can put like a roast chicken on there with the potatoes. You can sort of section things off. You can reuse it in multiple ways. But I also love a nice cutting board, like a carving board that you can also sort of like style in different ways too. And you can put different, if it's hors d'oeuvre time, you can put obviously your charcuterie and stuff. But if it's your dinner time, you can have different dishes on a board or like on a platter. But gravitate towards, even if it's not actual candles, like buy yourself, you know, even at Marshalls or whatever, they sell like the little votives that you just switch on the battery. And even that little thing just really lifts up the environment, just the lighting alone. And yeah, I mean, like I've got plates that, you know, I got for my wedding that we're actually using more and more now. Like you don't have to just save it for the special occasion that happens once every 5 years. Use the fancy stuff. Why not? Especially like, I mean, it's there, you know, and it's nice to sort of eat out of different dishes when you can. It sort of feels fancy. And even though it's just a Sunday night, oh, we're using the nice china, it feels like a fancier meal than it actually is, you know? So I would say, yeah, like I don't think go too nuts with like paper turkeys. I mean, like if my kids made paper turkeys, I would be like, yeah, I would put them all over. But like, I don't think you have to go buy stuff at a party store or whatever and really go overboard unless that's your thing. But yeah, having a moment for the butter on little dishes. I think that's like little touches like that, I feel like elevates everything. And using real napkins. I don't know. I think that's really nice too. And little things like that just help to take it from an ordinary meal and make it feel a little bit more special. And on a Tuesday night, I'll take what I can get, you know?
Yeah, no, and it shows care for the people that you're cooking for too. I think even just the simplest things, like when people buy store-bought hummus, I'm like, put it in a bowl, drizzle a little olive oil over it, and then put a sprinkle of za'atar or urfa or just sesame seeds or paprika or whatever. And people will be like, oh, this is so nice. And it's like, no, it's just grocery store hummus, but it feels nice because I take it out of the plastic.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like little things like that that are like, it took 2 seconds and 50 cents worth of olive oil and za'atar or anything like that. But like you really elevated it. And I think just taking just little extra moments. And I also think having the technique and foundation to like carve something nicely helps too. And, you know, even if you watch a YouTube, if you're uncomfortable with breaking down a chicken, like watch some videos, you know, download our app, or go on classes and see how to do that. Because I think, I don't know, I just think presentation is such a nice opportunity to sort of, as you're saying, like make people feel special that you're with, and just it helps to sort of slow down time for a few extra minutes and, you know, make that moment of that meal all the more extra special.
Do you have maybe 2 more tricks of the trade that you used when a dish is just looking really sort of grim, or you need to zhuzh it up that people can use?
Having various salts, like I think Malden salt or a different, you know, a fleur de sel, a gray salt, or, you know, finishing with, like you said, the olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. That's such an important thing, I think. And then the salt and fresh cracked pepper. I feel like that always sort of lifts food up. Sprinkling of cheese, you know, really good parm, and have one of those rasp style graters so that it gets really nice and feathery, so that when you do sprinkle it on some pasta, it sort of like melts down into the sauce or the pasta. And also lemons, like lemon juice helps so much. Also, you know, playing with different ways to cut a lemon so that you can have that be on your platter and make it look special, and use herbs. Like I'm all for cooking what I have in the kitchen. It's like one of my favorite. I don't realize it at the time, but then afterwards I'm like, oh yeah, that was cool. Like finding things I have in my fridge or my pantry and making a meal out of that. There's something about that I love so much. And using things like the leftover herbs you have, or the leftover clementines my kids didn't eat, or lemons, putting those on a platter, and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I don't do that. I'm not like, oh my gosh, great, yeah, but like someone else would be like, oh wow, the, you know, pork looks great. Or
Okay, those are all really good tips. The last sort of part of the podcast is the busy brain section, Ashley. So I always ask 2 questions, and one is what sparks creativity for you in the kitchen when you're having maybe a harder time getting there. And then the second piece of that question is what calms the chaos. And it can be physical chaos or mental chaos.
I think depending on the weather, I think that depending on the day, depending on the weather, will definitely affect what I want to create that day. So, you know, obviously if it's really hot outside, but it's a Sunday or it's a Saturday and I know I've got time, I would, you know, take the time to salt my tomatoes so that, you know, it's going to extract some of their juices so that I could toss them in the pasta, and it's going to be the most juicy, flavorful tomato in the world. That's going to be a different me being creative in the kitchen than Ashley on February 12th being like, it's really cold outside and I really want that short rib ragu that I have left over in the freezer, but I'm going to take that out and I'm going to extend that and turn it into, let's say, like that with polenta or something like that. Like, I think there's a combination of taking the things I have in my kitchen always makes me creative of like, what can I turn this into? And then, yeah, and depending on the day of the week and the weather outside, and like, that's all going to affect. And also what we've been eating lately, like that's all going to affect my creativity and what I'm going to make for the family. Again, fingers and toes crossed that people actually eat it.
Spoken like a true ADHD New England chef. We are kindred, Ashley. It's like totally my jam. Yes, we meet the constraints. What is the crazy weather doing? What are our kids going to eat? So that all makes sense. And then the second piece is what calms the chaos for you in the kitchen. And again, it can be physical chaos or mental chaos.
Yeah, music. I cannot do much of anything without music, to the point where my kids are like, do we have to listen to this song again? But yeah, you do. Or else like I can be nice and put in my earbuds. But yeah, like it grounds me. Music grounds me. It excites me. It inspires me. I start my day with music. You know, I take the train in every morning and my music is on the second I get on the train. And I just can't imagine my life without music because it is so important to my day-to-day. It'll keep me, like I said, grounded, but it also can get me out of a funk. You know, like if I'm kind of in my head and I'm like, and I'm feeling kind of one way about something, if I'm listening to a certain song, boom, I'm like, you know, on that journey of imagining this concert I went to or imagining the song this woman is singing. And I just think it can really transform.
Anything particular on your playlist right now that's bringing you joy, calming your chaos?
I mean, so I love Gregory Alan Isakov. I just saw him for, I think, the 5th time.
I was there too at the Wang.
Oh, actually, I went to the P-Back in Providence.
Oh my gosh, I saw him at the Wang. It was so magical.
Radiohead, I'm a huge Radiohead person. Huge. Harry Styles, I love Harry Styles. He brings me so much joy.
I think you need to make a Spotify cooking playlist and you need to make it public and then we can share it.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Very, very cool. Thank you for sharing all that. Ashley Moore, thank you so much for coming out from Concentrate. Before we go, tell us where we can find you.
Of course. And thank you for having me. This was so much fun. Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. It's at Ashley P.W. Moore. I'm on TikTok. I don't really post a lot, but I love to scroll on TikTok. So reach out. Anything, you know, I'm always wanting to like teach or help or talk or anything. If anyone ever has questions or I don't know, I'm always here. So.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I cannot wait to make that roast check-in. And of course, to find time for us to meet up and swap more stories from the ADHD food media trenches.
I would love that. Yes, come down to Providence.
I will. We'll eat with Allison, our chef friend, and it's going to be great. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
And you. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ashley. And if you are an ADHDer or you love someone who is, I hope it was nice hearing somebody speak kindly of their busy brain and be an example of how hard work and passion and, yes, a little bit of hyperfocus can go a long way in achieving what you set out to do in your career. Before we go, I do want to ask you for one thing, which I always do, you guys, and that is to please follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like this episode, I would love for you to share it with a food-loving, busy-brained friend. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time.
This could happen to you.
Not From Concentrate is produced by me, Catherine Smart, with audio and video production by Kevin O'Connell. Allie Miller is our associate producer, and the theme music is by Kylie Daly.